Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Jorge Perez. This is wutanshaolinkungfu, and today I'm interviewing one of my cousins in the Wu-Tan family. His name is Paolo Castaneda. He's been part of Wu-Tan, Alaska. He is a disciple of Master Kurt Wong. He moved to Europe later on. He started Wu-Tan Oslo. Then, for personal reasons, he moved to Denmark. And now he started this year Wu-Tan Denmark. If you want to know more about Paolo Castaneda, stay with me and let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel Wutan Shaolin Kung Fu. Today I'm here with Paolo Castaneda. Paolo began his training in martial arts at the age of 11 in Taekwondo. He had also studied Filipino Kali and some Western boxing. So please, let's welcome Paolo to our interview today. Hi Paolo, how are you doing?
Doing good, Jorge. I'm doing very well. Thank you for the invite and also for this opportunity to talk today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for your time today. And I can't wait to start with this interview with you. So, Paolo, can you please talk about you yourself and what you've done in martial arts in the past uh, years?
Yeah, I could go. I'll try my best. Um, I started off like my father saw that I had an interest in Chinese martial arts. I was a big fan of, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, watching all their movies. And yeah, my father, he was a chess master. He thought that it would be good that I had some sort of activity. So he enrolled me like at a local karate club. But I was 9 years old at the time, and that wasn't really any serious training. So I did that for a couple months, and then decided that I wanted to do kids stuff. And then at the age of 11, my interest in martial arts started to come back again, and I joined my father enrolled me at a Taekwondo school. So that was the start of my martial art career. So I did that for about 4 years with an American instructor and also a Korean instructor later on. And I got interested in Filipino martial arts. It was part of my culture because I'm originally from the Philippines, and started learning some Filipino stick fighting, Kali, under the Kali Bilbiro Largusa system. So I did that 2.5 years, moved to the Philippines, and again, watching all these Chinese martial art films, especially back then, it was like the mid 90s. Jet Li was big, Don Yen was starting, to make a name for himself. And I saw a movie called Tai Chi Master.
Mm,
And
I've heard about it.
yeah. So I mean, it's Tai Chi, right? But still, it was cool. I was impressionable back then. And when I moved back to Anchorage, Alaska from Philippines, I said, okay, I'm going to find a Tai Chi instructor and learn Taijiquan, right? But I checked out some of the Tai Chi schools. It was too, yeah, a lot of it was too new agey ish, if you know
I'm
what I
sure.
mean.
I'm sure it wasn't like the movie.
No. It was like, okay, this is, yeah, this is not exactly the crowd. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just
Yeah.
wasn't me, right? And I was just driving over to my cousin's house, and I saw the strip mall on the across the street from my cousin's place, and it was Wutan Kung Fu and Tai Chi Institute.
Hmm.
And I walked into the school with a friend of mine who was with me, and it was Master or Shifu Kurt Wong, my Shifu.
Yeah.
And funny thing is that I actually met him. How long was this? About 8 years back. So that's another story.
Yeah.
But basically, that's how I got into Wutan, and I've been hooked since.
Unbelievable. So let me get this. Let me clarify this. So you were born in Philippines,
Yes,
and
yes,
then you moved to Alaska. Was it? Is it right?
yes, correct. So I mean, I was born in the Philippines.
Okay.
My father and mother, they were newly married, and they were seeking out, a better life. And there was an opportunity for my father to move to Anchorage, or at that time Kodiak, Alaska, which was an island, south central
Okay.
Alaska. And yeah, he moved there first. And after a year, he brought my mother and I from the Philippines. So I was about, yeah, just a year old when we moved to the US.
And then you came back to Philippines at some point in your life after that?
Yes. I wanted to know a little bit more about my culture. So right after high school, I moved back to the Philippines
So you
and
were kind
studied.
of like 18 years old, roughly,
Exactly,
back then?
exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And yeah, I wanted to experience life in the Philippines. I mean, I couldn't speak Filipino at the time,
Yeah.
or Tagalog. So, I mean, I was kind of lost, right? I was caught in between two cultures. I wasn't American enough to be really American. I
Yeah.
didn't know enough Filipino to be Filipino. So I felt like this was a search for my identity. So that's why I moved to the Philippines.
Kind of a culture shock a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it was really. I mean, seeing a lot of the, of course, the poverty in Manila,
Yeah.
it changes you after you see that and makes you appreciate life in the U.S. and what our parents worked hard to offer us.
Awesome. Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting. Let me ask you, then after you went to Philippines, you came back to Alaska again,
Yes,
right? And then is when you start training with your master Shifu Kurt Wong.
correct.
That was in what year?
Hmm.
When you
Oh,
start?
what year?
Uh-huh.
That was, when was it? It should have been around the spring of '97.
Okay, got it. And that's when you started training with Shifu Wong, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also my older brother Kevin Wall. So I trained with him as well. So both with Shifu Wong and my Dasha Shung Kevin Wall.
Okay, awesome. All right, Paolo. So you went to Philippines, you studied other martial arts, then you came back to Alaska, and then you went to college, right? What did you
Yes.
do? What did you study? What was your profession? I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I got a bachelor's in business administration with an emphasis in marketing. Funny thing is I don't work with marketing today, but somehow
That
you
happens,
get
right?
sidetracked. Yeah, yeah, but I mean, still within business. So today I'm working as a business unit manager for a payroll team that helps multinational companies enter Denmark. And one of the things that they need to make sure that they're compliant with is paying their employees. So that's what my
Oh,
team does.
okay, got it. And how did you end up in Denmark? I guess that's another question, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, during my time in Alaska after I finished up my college degree, um, my wife or then fiance, we met each other in the Philippines. She decided that she was going to move back to Norway, and I decided to follow her
Okay,
and dropped everything. I also told my Sufu, I'd like to go to Norway, and basically he said, okay, that's good, go for it. So I moved to Norway and to be with my wife. We got married, had two children, and my career took off basically in Norway. It started in Norway, and I was given an opportunity to move to Denmark with the company that I was working with, and basically covered my eyes, took a step, and moved to Denmark with my family.
I see. Can you um explain a little bit? You mentioned it before, but who is your master, and how is that line of succession? Um, and also, how are you related to, or w- how did you become part of the Wu-Tan lineage?
Mm. Yes, I could go ahead and do that. So, as I mentioned, my sufu is Master Kurt Wong. His Chinese name is Wong Wenshun. So he was a disciple of Su Yuchang, Master Su, Lightning Fist Su. So we all know that he's the Mantis King of Taiwan and super fast, lightning speed.
Lightning speed. That is correct. He went to Venezuela as well back in the
Yes,
70s. So, yep.
yes. So when as you mentioned, he did go to Venezuela, and when he went to Venezuela, that basically my teacher became or started training with Grandmaster Liu during that time. So he had the opportunity to learn with Grandmaster Liu, and also, of course, some of his other seniors, such as Master Adam Shu as
Adam
well.
Su. Hmm.
So basically, those are the three that really influenced my teacher the most. So Praying Mantis was Master Su mainly, and also the beginnings of Bajiquan.
Yeah.
Grandmaster Liu, of course, was Bajiquan and Piguazhang. And then Adam Shu was Tantui and Chen style Taiji.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting, right? Because your master, it's part of the, so technically the Tan generation.
Yes,
Correct me if I'm wrong. Tan
correct.
generation, but he also trained or learned from Grandmaster Liu Yun-Qiao, which makes him
Mm.
kind of from the Wu generation somehow. So he's kind of a mix there a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, it was interesting because a lot of Master Su's students, when he left, basically, I guess there was some sort of, yeah, they had no teacher basically, and as I understand, that basically opened up the doors for Grandmaster Leo to basically take in these students and to start training them, continue their training, right? So at least that's how I understand
Okay,
the situation.
I see. And then when did you become a disciple of, of Master Wong?
Well, that took a while. So my first year actually in training, I was lucky enough that I joined at the right time basically because my teacher's kung fu brother Lu Changquan came to visit from Taiwan, or the late Lu Changquan, and we had a discussion. I was his driver during that time, showing him around Anchorage, Alaska, trying to entertain him, of course. So he asked me. The funny thing is, he doesn't speak any English, very little English. So
Mm-hmm.
we were chatting mainly through his little translator that he
Yeah.
had, pocket translator. And he asked me, "Are you a disciple?" And at that time, I wasn't aware of what a disciple was and what does that mean.
Yeah.
And I said, I study kung fu. And he says, "Okay, I will talk to your teacher."
Mm-hmm.
And during dinner, Shifu approached me and said, "I understand that you want to become a disciple." I'm like,
I have no idea what is that, but
exactly. So I was like, uh, yeah,
yeah,
okay,
I
yeah,
guess.
that sounds cool. So
And by the
Shifu
time
said
you
this.
had how many years training? You said just 1 year.
It was just one. It was less than a year actually.
Okay.
And you gotta understand, Shifu was teaching since 1979 in the U.S. I was at the school around 97. So at that time, he didn't take any disciples, any formal disciples.
Okay. So it was going to be like kind of his first group of disciples, right?
Yeah, and he was
Probably
still very
almost after,
reluctant.
probably almost 20 years after he started teaching in Alaska. Okay.
Exactly, and he was very reluctant because I mean, taking on disciples was a very serious deal. As you know, in our lineage, when you do the Baisu ceremony, I
Yeah.
mean, you're dedicating yourself to carrying on the traditions of Grandmaster Leo and also the masters before him,
It's a
and passing
commitment.
it down to the next. Yes, it's
It's
a
a
commitment. It's a
serious
lifetime
commitment.
commitment. Yes,
Correct.
exactly. And Shifu at the time, he wasn't sure if he himself was ready to accept disciples. Mind you, he was already in his 40s during that time, right? And it was he took it very seriously.
Okay.
So he said that, yeah, Master Lu said that you'd like to become a disciple. And, we could start talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told me about the lineage, what it meant to become a disciple, and so forth, and also the responsibility. But
Yeah.
it took him probably another maybe 2 or 3 years before he actually went through with it and
Okay.
took on disciples. So it was,
From the time from that dinner, I would say
yeah,
like 3 years later. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Got it.
And I didn't blame him. It was it. I myself, I took on disciples quite early. in my career, and at times I wish I didn't. I don't think I was mature enough. But
Hmm.
then also, a lot of my students were around the same age as me, and part of doing the discipleship was to pass down Baji.
Okay.
And back then, I mean, Baji as well is like that was we took Baji very seriously, the training, and to pass down Baji for us, you had to be closed doors. You had to buy to your teacher, and then you were given the opportunity to learn Baji trend.
I love that. And I kind of want to share right now how it was in Venezuela.
Hmm.
Very similar to what you experienced. So Pachi was only taught to people that was either very advanced and also 18 years old and older.
Hmm.
Um, and it was like that, just closed door. Nobody could stay
Exactly.
and watch the class. It was a kind of some kind of a mystery class, right? Like very,
Yeah.
very unique. And I remember when I started training Pachi, it was the same way. I remember it was actually like kind of Monday nights and
Hmm.
lights off. Only the group of people that was, going to be in the class. Everybody else had to leave after the last class. And I read somewhere that it was like that before when Grandmaster Taijiquan came to Venezuela and all that, and he started training or teaching Pachi. So it is very similar, and I'm glad to hear that because kind of it. I'm guessing it was like that back in the day as
Hmm.
well, right? And that's why it kind of became some kind of the norm, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But that's also going to be the death of us, in my opinion, especially at the modern times. And I'm more leaning towards because we have guns, we have mixed martial arts,
Yeah.
we have so many other tools to beat a person. You don't need to learn a special style to defeat others. But for me, the treasure is that Bajiquan is so pure in its power issuing, and its technique is so simple. So for me, it's a shame that it's being lost for the next generation, and not because of secrecy, basically. So I'm a bit more open, I would say, to share Baji Chuan. So for those who would like to learn Baji Chuan, of course they have to see their skill level and seeing what they have learned before, and then consider teaching Baji Chuan. So you don't need to. For me, I don't need to accept disciples for Bajian. But of course, if they would like to continue the lineage, okay, let's do it official and
Yeah.
do the ceremony.
So Master Wong wasn't wrong about you. He picked the right disciple because you continued with that commitment
Mm.
even until now. And
Yeah,
that's what it seems to me it's going to be your plan for the future as well. So that's great, and I want to congratulate you for that, Qasim. Let me
thank
ask
you.
you something. You have disciples.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Can you explain a little bit more about it? And before you jump into that question, let me ask
Hmm.
you, how was your Paisu ceremony? Because that's something that I want to share so other people from the Wu-Tan family can understand how it was for you and maybe
Hmm.
compare it to how it was for them at some point, right? So I think that's a interesting question.
Yeah, sure, sure. So basically, our ceremony when we became disciples, Master Liu Yun-Qiao was there, of course. So he was the witnessing master. So basically, yeah, it was basically that there's 9 of us that were disciples. I was the second youngest out of the group to be accepted as a disciple.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, there was a whole ceremony, right? So we had to wait outside. We couldn't witness the first part of the ceremony, and then Master Lu would call us to come enter the door. So basically, entering the doors of Wu-Tan. So
Okay.
we enter the doors of Wu-Tan.
That was the
We
meaning of getting through
Yes,
the door. Okay.
exactly, exactly. So you're being welcomed in, and that you're being accepted as closed door students.
Okay.
So we did the whole kirtle, to prostrate ourselves, and also to dedicate ourselves to our teacher. Our Dashashong had offered the tea to Master Wong, and of course, Master Wong accepted the tea and drank the tea, and then accepted us as his students. And Master Liu had talked about Wu-Tan and disciples, and then Shifu said some words as well, some encouraging words about becoming disciples and so forth. And basically, that was the ceremony.
Okay.
So very simple, but very, I would say,
Meaningful.
you felt like you were meaningful. Exactly. You felt like you're becoming part of something, and that the long line of ancient masters. Now you're part of that line, and that was such an honor.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I remember mine, and it was just like that. It kind of sets up a beginning of something. Even when you were already
Mm,
training for years, it
mm,
feels like it's a beginning
yeah.
to really like commit to something, to a lineage, to a legacy, right? Because
Mm,
that's what it feels to me. It's at the end, it's a legacy that
yes, it is.
we are the responsibles for taking that legacy into future generations. And that's one
Yes.
one way to see it. And I'm sure you share that thought as well, right? Because I think it's a really good way to describe it somehow, right?
Yeah.
To other people that also don't understand what's a disciple, what's a Paisu
Mm,
ceremony, and what happens after that, right? Let me, before we jump into your disciples,
mm,
out of those 9 disciples,
mm.
how many of those continue training today and teaching or learning, or roughly?
4.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and that's something that happens as well. And that's
Mm,
something I heard in the past, like before you start making disciples, you gotta, in theory, pick people or choose people that really will commit
yeah.
to this, right? But it's really hard when you are kind of, in making that decision. Make sure that those people will
Yeah.
continue to the, for the years. Some of them just stop training or teaching, and some of them continue, like you, like me, right? That's
Yeah.
another example.
I think it was, really more like it was probably not for everybody. The seriousness. Others maybe it wasn't the path that they wanted to follow. Eventually, they came to that realization. Whatever the reasons were, I mean, we have to respect those reasons. And
Absolutely.
I'm still close to I still consider them my brothers
Yeah.
till this day. And we still keep very close contact. And I try to learn from them as well. That's
Yeah.
how it is with me with martial arts, is that we always have that spirit of learning, and trying to encourage one another to continue their path, wherever it may be.
Yeah. They will always be your brothers and
Mm.
siblings, right? But yeah. So
Especially if you do Mabu together, right? So everybody did, as if you did Mabu with me, and that you're crying and sweating in Mabu with me, then you're my brother for life.
yeah, I I was telling Viet in our interview that one part of the test of the black belt in Venezuela in my school, and I think it was like that before. It's doing a 5-minute Mapu test.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
serious.
that's when you really sweat. After
Yeah,
minute
yeah.
3, 4, God, it's
And
heavy.
it has to be 90 degrees.
No,
If it's
no,
90 degrees, then if
uh,
it's higher than 90 degrees, that's too easy.
no, no, no. You just failed. You got to
Yeah,
start all over again.
yeah.
So tell me about your disciples. When um did you make this Paisu ceremony for yourself and your disciples?
It was actually back in Norway. So I started to, well, when I first moved to Norway, I wasn't planning to teach right away. So basically, I was newly married, training by myself, and I wanted to see what was out there in Oslo. So I visited some schools in Oslo, kung fu schools,
Yeah.
kung fu, and I was a bit shocked to see what was being taught. So I saw some schools basically wearing, Chinese uniforms, but doing Taekwondo. So I came from
Oh,
a Taekwondo background, so I know the Taekwondo forms. And I'm like, this is not Chinese martial
mm,
arts. This is not,
yeah.
kung fu. Wing Chun was well represented in Norway, so that part was fine. But northern styles, there was no representation, and if there was any representation of kung fu, it was for me. Pardon, if I seem a bit direct, but charlatans.
Okay.
So basically, people who were saying that they taught Chinese martial arts but had no lineage, and also there was no the mechanics was not Chinese martial arts, it was karate, taekwondo, or something that's completely made up. I
Yeah.
even met one person who said that they trained tiger style, and their students were so beaten up by the training that they were having serious health problems.
Mm.
So I contacted my shifu and I asked him if I am able to teach. And basically, it's like I was waiting for you to do that. I was expecting you to basically open a
Uh,
school in
absolutely.
Norway. So I started off teaching at a health club in Norway. And the health club, I mean, there was a karate class that was right next to us where I was training, and the health club manager didn't want for me to be how to say this, a threat basically to the karate club. So what else can you teach? I guess I could teach Taiji,
Mm-hmm.
and I teach Chen Taiji, right? So it's okay. Yeah, that doesn't seem very how to say this. I don't think they will be threatened by a Tai Chi club or
Yeah.
Tai Chi class. So I started teaching Taiji, and first day I remembered I had like I think like 10 or 12 people come by, and we went through the basic G-bend and warm-ups. One student came to me and said, excuse me, Paulo, is my legs supposed to be shaking this much? I said, yes, that's very good.
It's
Uh,
because you're doing it right.
yeah, exactly. And then another student was like, Paulo, am I supposed to be sweating and breathing very heavily? He said, yes, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So some people think that because it's Tai Chi, you won't sweat, your legs won't shake. Let me tell you, they
Exactly.
will shake even more, sometimes.
Yeah, they thought that it'd be basically relaxation and holding the tree, breathing, whatever, right? But the training is old school, right? So this is old school Chinese martial arts training, and it just so happens I was teaching Tai Chi. So that was the first day of training. So 10, 12 students. The next training, two.
Oh my god.
And it was like that, I think, for maybe a couple months. It was just only two students, and of course, I was teaching for a health club, and they were like, "Okay, this is not working out. We'll probably have to cancel." And I tell you what, let me do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's open up and say that this is a Chinese martial arts club that we teach northern style Chinese martial arts. I will get students.
Mm-hmm.
So he agreed, and basically we re-advertised, and that this was a northern Chinese school. That's when I started getting students. So started slowly building up the club. So I think we were like 15, 20 students
Okay.
eventually that were training, in Chinese martial arts. So they all started learning Tan Tui first, and then afterwards they would go into Praying Mantis or Taiji, depending on what their interests were. And we got pretty big to the point where okay, we decided let's go ahead and step away from the health club and open up a club. And we started Oslo Wu-Tan.
Okay.
I think that 2005.
Got it.
So and the first batch of students from that time, they were the ones that I took on as disciples. I think it was like 10 or something. I can't remember top of my head. So and basically it was I had some very dedicated students, very eager students who wanted to delve more into the Chinese martial arts. And at that time I was like, okay, if you want to learn, for example, Bajiquan, we need to do discipleship. And I just didn't feel that at the time. I
So
felt that maybe I wasn't quite ready, but I didn't want my students to wait 10 years, basically. They would be in their 40s if I
yeah.
would accept them as disciples, right? So I asked my teacher, and he agreed to do the discipleship ceremony. So I brought my teacher over, and we officiated disciples for the first batch of students. And they took on the discipleship, and then that's when we became we had master and student disciple
Okay.
relationship.
Unbelievable. And that was your only group of disciples?
I would take on some more in later years, so there would be different batches of disciples that I
Oh,
would take on.
that's very interesting. I didn't know that, Paolo. Awesome.
Thanks.
Paolo, let's talk about your curriculum, or at least can you share a summary of your curriculum related to the Wutan lineage core? Let's call it that way, right?
Mm. Yeah. So basically, I mean, before anybody touches any of the core styles like Baji, Pigua, and Baguazhang, I usually put my students through learning some sort of Chinese martial arts, such as long fist or praying mantis first, because many of my students came from different backgrounds. I want to make sure that their body is reset,
But
that they relearn things.
as far as what you learned,
Hmm.
what's your curriculum as far as what did you learn related to that Wutan lineage?
Okay.
What
Yeah,
are
I
the
mean, I learned
forms
the
that
Baji
you
trend.
know? Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Basically, I learned the Baji trend from my teacher. So of course, there's the Jingle Basha, the eighth grade
And that
usage of.
was after becoming a disciple, right? That you started
Yeah.
learning Pachi, and that's why you have been doing the same thing with your disciples and all that, right?
Yes, yes. So, well, the funny thing is that my teacher started showing us some basic Baji before we became disciples. But
Okay.
when we became disciples, we were able to learn
Like,
Shalbaji.
like basic drills, I'm
Yes,
guessing, right? And then
yes.
Chiapachi before becoming a disciple?
No, no. We when we became disciples, then we
Okay.
were given the opportunity to learn Shalbaji. Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Mm. So, but basically, I've learned Jingabasha, Shalbaji, Dabaji, Baji Sanshi Ursher, Baji 32. Also, my teacher's version of his Baji Linwan, which basically is with a Pigua as well, and also Liu Dakai.
Okay. Interesting.
So those are the Baji styles. And then with Pigua, my teacher focused a lot. The funny thing is when we were first starting out, when I first started training with my teacher, a lot of our warm-ups were actually Pigua warm-ups.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
a lot of the Pai Gong, the body conditioning, arm
Yeah.
swings, so little
Touching,
panda.
touching the
Yes,
body to activate all those points.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So a lot of that was already ingrained in our warm-ups. So
We share
and
that too.
we Yeah, yeah.
We used
So
to.
they're really good. Very good for developing good kung fu and also, basic like body conditioning so that, you're able to take impact of hits or also, conditioning the body, right? So we did that in the regular training. And then I actually had the opportunity to learn Pigua my first year.
Oh, okay.
I
Interesting.
learned that from actually Master Liu Qiao. So
Okay.
he came over and he taught us the Pigua first form.
Okay.
So but it was very bad, and it wouldn't be until later when I became a disciple that I started understanding a bit more about Piguazhang and also Baji, the interconnection between the two.
Did you used to do Piqua after the Pachi class?
No, I mean we already knew Pigua. That was the thing. So it was mainly Bajichuan that we were focusing on with my teacher, and Pigua would be like off to the side. Sometimes I would work in my Pigua first form, and my teacher would make a lot of corrections. And
Okay.
but he loved Piguazhang. That was his favorite.
Okay.
So because Pigua was something that he got from Grandmaster Liu directly, so he holds that
Oh.
very close to his
Yeah.
heart. So he would give us a lot of tips. And my teacher, I mean, he's not really big into like forms. He's really more into Jiben, like a lot of the basics and trying to
Mm-hmm.
develop certain qualities,
Yeah.
within the basics. So that was his main focus with us.
Um, I was going to ask you how was the training with your master when
Mhm.
you were in Alaska? Can you explain how was during the different days, and did you guys used to do sparring or applications of those drills or even the forms or something like that? How
Mm.
was? Can you talk to us a little bit?
Yeah, really, his focus was on basics, always basics. So we would focus mainly on stance training. So every class was always stance training. So focusing on the 8 stances, trying to learn root, relax. Having this sense of relaxation, but at the same time having pump. Like a sense of fullness. So his focus is really trying to develop a strong foundation in our kungfu. And then we have, like, of course, the forms training where we would do some forms just to get used to different types of movements, learning the flavor of each style that we were learning. And he would show us also usages. So we'd cover some usages, especially like with praying mantis usages and trying to apply the form in practical usage. Sparring, I mean, we didn't do so much sparring back in the day, but I mean, my teacher, he would say that, okay, if you probably need to test yourself out. So, you go out and, test yourself out. So in not so direct words, but basically, that was what he was saying.
Okay.
So, and me being young, I was in the university. There was a lot of martial art clubs at the university, so I used to visit some of these martial art clubs and ask for a friendly match. So
I
started in that.
I laugh because that sounds to me like one of those stories that we read back in the day when those masters were from one school to the other one and just testing their skills basically.
Yeah,
So that's what you were doing back in the day.
yeah. I mean, when I was learning Taekwondo, we were very heavy into sparring, right? And
Mm-hmm.
also in Filipino martial arts, that was more drills.
Yeah.
But I felt that I needed to test myself out. My brothers and I would often like stay after class. I had the keys to the school, so I would open and close, the
Okay.
school. So there were several of us that actually had the keys, so we could go to the school anytime to go train. So my brothers and I would, after hours, we try to work out some usages, spar. And I still remember that one of my older brothers, I was getting on his case about, his gongbu. I said, your gongbu is not good enough. If you did your gongbu right, then the technique would be good. Then next thing you know, he punches me with a perfect gongbu punch. I flew out of the school doors and I was outside, and he did his gongbu punch right. So I hope he's listening because I always share that story. But that's how it was. When we were training, we're kung fu crazy and we enjoyed sparring and testing each other out, but also going out and trying out other people.
Awesome. Awesome. I like to hear that. So, um, I kind of want to talk to you about, there's at least I'm a little bit concerned about these traditional styles, like
Yeah.
very traditional styles. When I said, and when mention Pachi and Piqua as traditional styles, I'm talking specifically about the Wutan lineage
Mm.
because you can see some Pachi out there that it's more like kind of a looks like a modern wushu.
Mm.
Uh, Same with Piqua. So talking about specifically about these traditional styles from the Wutan lineage, do you think at some point in the future these styles will be lost because the upcoming generation won't be able to, you know, keep them and keep practicing and all that? What are your thoughts about that?
I think definitely, we're facing extinction,
Mm-hmm.
especially Baji and Pigua, and it
That
goes back to
that's
the
a
whole like
very
discipleship.
very strong word,
Yeah,
but it could be appropriate to use it
yeah,
because that's what might happen in the future, right? When we talk about
mm,
Pachi and especially everything that Grandmaster Liu Yun-Qiao taught, right? Because
yeah,
of course there's right now we have some of the masters from the U generation, a lot from the Tang generation, and
mm.
then we are coming next, right? Which is the can you remind me the generation
Kwang,
name? Quan generation, always forget.
yeah,
But then what will happen after that, right? I mean, we're
yeah,
still trying to do something, but what's gonna happen?
I mean, it's really scary, and I mean, you see a lot of other like within our family that they've opened up a bit more to teaching Bajiquan because they've recognized that if we don't do something now, possibly our beloved Baji and Pigua will be extinct because not very many people are given the opportunity to learn it, right? So, and it, a lot of it might be because of the discipleship. I'm still a firm believer in discipleship because you should still show some sort of seriousness if you want to pass down, the arts or to learn it actually. But to begin Baji training, I don't think that the discipleship is really necessary.
Hmm.
We shouldn't be that conservative these days. There are better ways of learning to beat others, right? And I mean, before these things used to be secrets because the teacher was responsible for their student. If the student was caught, maybe killed somebody or getting in a fight, the teacher would be the one to pay the price, not the student, right?
Yeah,
So that's the reason why you had that secrecy. We live in different times, so we have to learn to adapt to today's times. Change for the better, I would say. So for me, it's important to pass on Baji to those who want to learn Baji. You
yeah,
know, and to share it, as honest as possible. And also, I mean, really, the training itself for Baji is quite demanding. I mean, Shabaji, 8 breaths. Most people won't survive the first couple, postures of Shabaji if you train the traditional way. So, I mean, the training will weed people out that way, right? You have to have a certain, mental fortitude to be able to do that type of training. So, I don't see any problems teaching it, to the public. But something needs to happen.
have you thought about what can we do in order to prevent this?
You know,
I
we
mean,
have.
certainly
Mm,
starting teaching Pachi to students without
mm,
becoming a disciple first, it's something that, might help, right? Because
yeah,
by the time that you make the decision as far as, okay, I'm gonna have disciples before I teach them, but how long does it have to,
yeah,
it's gonna take quite some time before that happens. And by the
yeah.
time that you kind of decide making disciples, then probably they leave or something like that. So it's
I
gonna,
had that dilemma back in Norway, right? And that was the main reasons why I took on disciples quite early because I couldn't expect my students to wait 10, 15 years for me to make that decision. They would be too old
yeah,
to learn Baji, right? So really, I think that, again, it's of course teaching, but to somehow promote it. So we have, Grandmaster Johnson Lin, that's,
yeah,
the head of Wu-Tan right now. And he's doing a lot to promote, for example, you, myself, others in our school by posting on the Facebook pages. So that does help to get some awareness. And then you
some
have
visibility too.
exactly. Then you have people like Vincent May, so he's offering some online training programs, which I think is great. And he's doing that because he's creating an awareness and he's basically taking away barriers for other people to learn Bajichuan. So he has students in Sweden, the Philippines, all over the world, right? Different parts of the US. So I think that's great. So I think we need to rethink of how we present our beloved Bajichuan to the public and to be more open to teach it
Yeah,
and, finding different ways of teaching Bajichuan.
I like that. Paolo, I would like to know, do you like competitions? Have you competed in the past? And, can you share with us relevant competitions where you've been, and what do you think are the benefits of competing? Because I've mentioned before, like there are so many people that they go through their entire martial arts career without competing even once.
Mm.
And you kind of mentioned before that, well, it wasn't really a competition, but you kind of tested your kung fu skills in other ways, right?
Mm,
but competition is a way to test your what you've learned, right? Basically.
exactly.
So please go ahead. Let us know.
I think competition can be good. I mean, I came from a Taekwondo background, right? And in Taekwondo, we had a lot of sparring competitions where we fight, and also we had to form. So that stuff wasn't new to me. So when I joined Wutan, I mean, we were the only Chinese martial art club in Alaska, and so we had no venues for competition. However, I found out that our martial uncle, Master Tony Young, was holding a Grandmaster Liu memorial competition out in Canton, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that very, very interesting. I wanted to see. Okay, I've been training in Chinese martial arts for about 3 years or so, and I was like, okay, I wanted to compare myself to others, and maybe this was an opportunity as well to meet, our cousins, other practitioners of Chinese martial arts. So my brother and I, my older brother, we decided that we'd be the first ones to go. So we asked, of course, if it would be okay. We got his permission, so we flew down to Canton, Ohio, and joined our first competition. So at that competition, I did Piguazhang, the first form.
Okay.
Also, I did Qixing Jiao,
Okay.
so 7-star summary, yeah.
Yep.
Also sparring. So I also did some sparring there as well. And nobody knew who we were, so that was kind of nice. And then but at the same time, like, we of course presented ourselves to Master Young, and we told him who our teacher was, and he just welcomed us with open arms. He said, "Oh, Wang Wenshun,
Absolutely.
I know Wang Wenshun, that's my brother."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really nice. And then we were very lucky as well, and that was the first time that we met Master Su. He was also there at the competition with his
Oh,
students.
awesome.
So he was there, and then of course, we had to approach Master Su and introduce ourselves, and we told him that we were Master Wong's disciples, and he was like, oh, very excited as well,
Yeah.
because it was the first time that anybody from our branch showed their faces to any competitions.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a opening the door for others, right? So that was very nice. But back to the competition, I mean, it was an eye opener for me. I mean, the forms was fine, but I saw a lot of people from different styles. That was fine. But when I saw the Wu-Tan guys play, I was like, wow, these guys are so good.
Mm-hmm.
We had Andy Leonto, who was one of Tony Young's disciples, and I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. His Praying
Mm-hmm.
Mantis is wow. And then seeing Marit Ramberg, who is Master Su's disciple, and
Okay.
she was doing some this Baji form from Master Su's school, and I was like, wow, she's so powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. So that really inspired us, to, okay, we're clearly not at their level, so we have to work extra hard, you
Harder.
know.
Yeah.
Exactly, because I felt that my skill level is nowhere near their level, so it
Mm-hmm.
really inspired me to work harder. And then also from the sparring competition, I mean, I really tried to go with this game plan that, okay, I will try to use my praying mantis techniques with my hands and try to make the best out of it, right? And I was getting my butt handed over to me. It's literally just like getting, beaten up pretty bad. And then finally I was like, forget this. I'm going to start kicking. So I started
Uh-huh.
kicking and did a spinning side kick on this one guy. And then, I kicked him pretty hard. So his mouthpiece kind of came off, but it was too late. I
Yeah.
couldn't, the fight was over. So that was just the last kick. Darn. But it made me realize that, okay, I needed to work on my hands because I wasn't comfortable enough, right? And competition helped me to realize my weaknesses. So I came back with my brother and we went back to the drawing board. So we started training another year before the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time that we came, we brought Master Wong with us and also some more of our brothers. And
Awesome.
we I think we made a pretty good turnout there, and representing Wu-Tan Alaska, and then also our teacher's teachings. And it was a kind of a reunion as well for my teacher, because my teacher was seeing his his kung fu brother after how many years, and
Of
it was
course.
it was so nice to see, Master Wong and Tony was, Wong Wen Shun, Yang Xiao Dong, so
Ah,
they were, they hugged each other. So it was, yeah. So that also led to basically networking.
yeah.
So through after that, my teacher started inviting other masters. Prior to that, he did invite some other teachers over to Alaska to teach us. But then this was the venue where he brought Master Su later on, to us to
Okay.
train. So he was really inspired by the competition, I think, and also just reconnecting with his teacher, with his brothers. So yeah, so I think it's good. It's good definitely to develop one skill, but it's also the networking side,
Yeah.
getting to know our family and comparing yourself and trying to learn from them as well, right?
Yeah.
So when you see your brothers and you say, wow, they're really moving. So what do you do for your
Yeah.
training? And how do you get to that level? You know,
And I want to talk about that specifically because you
mm,
mentioned something that really caught my attention, which is I saw other people performing much better than
mm,
what I was doing, and
mm,
I want to get to that level.
mm,
I need to train harder, or
yep,
I need to know what do you do, that gets you to that level because I want to be there as well, you know.
yeah,
And like you said, like the year later, you came back stronger, you trained harder because you knew what you were going to see during that competition.
mm,
So that's something that, you know, I told you I've been competing my entire life basically. And I've seen I'm the kind of person that likes to improve. I'm a huge fan of continuous improvement.
mm-hmm,
In Japanese, it's called kaizen.
mm-hmm,
And I want to say that I take a look at other martial arts. For example, karate. They went to the Olympics, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, 2 3 years ago
yeah,
to Tokyo actually, and karate was there.
mm,
So I follow this lady. She is from Spain. She actually
yeah,
got the gold medal.
mm,
And I've noticed that, and this is a conversation that I could pretty much have with many people, and they will have different opinions about it. So let me pick your brain here.
mm-hmm,
This lady trains at the gym. She does, high intensity interval training. She does weight. I've seen her that she practice her karate moves
mm-hmm,
with elastic bands, for example,
mm-hmm,
or maybe she goes to the gym and grab the with her hand. She start punching with weight right on it,
mm-hmm,
and that kind of you can see how. And I've done it before. I've trained with elastic bands. I've trained with weights. And if you kind of build that into your training, once that you kind of start punching the air again, let me tell you, that punch will be faster.
mm-hmm,
Once that you kind of, release that weight or the elastic band, and then you start training your form, you'll be faster.
mm-hmm,
You'll have more power. And that's one of the things that I like to see in other martial arts. Like what are they doing? What are they so powerful and fast at the same time?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I've been incorporating some of that into my training.
mm-hmm,
And I think kind of like help you to become a better martial artist.
mm-hmm,
Back in the day, I mean, there wasn't the technology that we have today. Um, and also the training methods were very traditional.
mm-hmm,
But now we have some tools.
mm-hmm.
So why can't we just use those tools to become a better martial artist? You know,
Mm, mm.
what do you think about that?
I guess I have mixed feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm very much a traditionalist.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like the power training and, the Jiben, I feel that, the Jiben should help to build the body, right, in the correct way. So, not just lifting weights. If I want to have like a very powerful punch, like for example, doing weightlifting and just focusing on certain muscle groups, that's not that's not going to accomplish our type of power, right? That would be more like Li or muscle strength rather than having a proper, jig, proper power that's using the whole body, a relaxed type of power. But at the same time, sports science also shows us that there are other ways of developing functional strength, like you have kettlebells, which is similar to the blocks, those blocks that they
Yeah.
use in
Yeah. The
yeah.
kettlebells.
Yeah. So kettlebells is, I mean, that is more functional. That I could dig, because you're using the whole body, in a natural way, right? Rather than focusing on certain muscle groups. I do think that we need to definitely move into the 21st century when it comes to martial art training and to develop the body. But we should also try to analyze the type of exercises that we're doing. Will this contribute to actually developing my kungfu, right? And not just a external power because just doing weights and all these other stuff. You know, that's fine and probably good, to a certain point, but it needs to be something will that we could build upon, and that's something we could take into old age as well, right?
Yeah. As far as let me ask you this as well. After this conversation, do you think traditional kung fu can be seen as a sport and also as a martial art at the same time?
I think so, as long as you have the right attitude, right? Because there needs to be a balance between the sports side and also the traditions.
Yeah.
So we need to know where we come from. And I think that the competitions give us a venue to showcase the traditional martial arts. But we shouldn't, how do we say this? We shouldn't compromise our traditional methods, our traditional forms. For example, if I'm doing Taijiquan and all of a sudden I do a backflip and then land in a split just to win a competition,
Yeah.
that's defeating the purpose of tradition, right? So I want to show traditional martial arts and to highlight the skill
Yeah.
of traditional martial arts. When I see, for example, if I see Chen Taiji, oftentimes it's just a lot of shaking and low stances and it has no substance. But then oftentimes I would come across a person that's just doing taiji very natural, but then it's so powerful. You could tell from their movement that that they're directing their intent, that they're following the principles,
Yeah.
and that to me, that excites me when I see that. Not all this flashy stuff, but properly executed postures.
Yeah.
Following the principles, showcasing the styles, characteristics, and yeah. So for me, I think if you stay true to your identity as a traditional martial artist and you do it to the highest level possible, then yes, we could have it as a competition. But we have to be true to ourselves.
Awesome. Like that. Paolo, I would like to know what is the concept of a master for you? And what do you think are those characteristics that a master should have? And before you jump
Mm.
into the question, I want to listen to your answer from a disciple perspective and also from a Shifu perspective, because you have disciples as well. So
Mhm.
please delight us.
It's like reaching the top of Mount Everest. When I compare, if I'm going to have the eyes of a disciple and looking at my Suhu, it's wow, it seems almost unattainable, because when I look at my teacher, one thing that caught my attention about him is that he doesn't look like a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like a very kind man, and he's an accountant by trade, right? So, or was an accountant by trade. And that's how I see him. But then when he plays Praying Mantis, when he plays Baji, his personality changes, or at
Mm-hmm.
least his aura, or whatever you want to call it, it completely changes, and I'm frightened, frightened for my life, because he's so powerful, and the power that he generates, in his play, it's very simple move, but he does it effortlessly in a masterful way, and it just blows my mind, and I'm like wondering, how the heck am I going to accomplish that? And it's
Mm-hmm.
really because of the fact that he's so dedicated to his training. I mean, he's been training, from a young age up until today, and he's always working to refine his kungfu, working on the basics, not necessarily out for learning more forms, but really focusing on the basics and trying to perfect his technique. And my teacher always says that when we study martial arts, we're studying to learn to defeat ourselves. And that's what he does when he's trained. So I've been trying to follow that principle as well, because yeah, like I mentioned back about the competition, I said, wow, how am I going to get to those levels? Comparing myself to them. But eventually, when you get to a certain level, you start to say, okay, what is it that I can't do? What is it, something that I need to perfect in myself? I need to learn to defeat myself. Discover my inefficiencies and improving upon it. So that's what I'm doing. Just it may take like years or whatever, it may take forever. I don't know, but I'm always constantly trying to perfect something, be
Mm-hmm.
a better practitioner, be a better person, and being a better, father and
Yeah,
husband.
Paolo, sometimes it's very difficult to continue continue with this martial arts career and this legacy, right? Some, the family or university or work, and I understand you stopped training at some point of your life, your career.
Mm.
Can you explain what happened, and then after that, how did you come up with Utan Denmark, which
Mm.
is what you're working on right now?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's trying to make a long story short. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was, as you know, I started Oslo Wu-Tan and taught in Norway for 14 years. You know, so teaching traditional Chinese martial arts, and because I was new in Norway, and I didn't have any other way to make a living. So of course, there was a lot of time that was spent in Chinese martial arts, built a club, but towards the end, I started picking up with my career. I was working with payroll and accounting,
Mm-hmm.
and basically, trying to divide my time with teaching, with my career, and with my family. So I got to a point where I think I pretty much got burnt out, because it was so many things happening during that time, um, and Chinese martial arts it wasn't fun anymore,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. Um, I pretty much continued teaching because I had students that still wanted to learn.
Yeah.
So that's what kept me going, at least when I was living in Norway. So when I was offered a management role in Denmark, I took it immediately, because it was a career job for me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time I was like, okay, maybe during this time I focus on career and family, because when we first started out, it was really tough. I wasn't earning much. I was newly married. My daughter was sick, with an illness during that time, and it was really tough.
Okay.
And I did not want to be in that situation again. So really focusing on career. So when I moved to Denmark, I said to myself, okay, I will just continue to focus on my own career. If my students or my disciples from Norway come visit me, then that's fine. I'll teach them, you
Okay.
know. My wife as well, she was very adamant that my son Alex learns from me,
Mm-hmm.
because she felt it was a shame that that he's living with a Chinese martial artist, and you know, it shouldn't stop with me. It should continue to the next generation being my son. So I didn't want to teach my son,
Mm-hmm.
to be quite honest. It's always difficult to teach your own kids, but my wife, she's the boss, so
Yeah.
I had to salute and I said, okay, I'll go ahead and accept it, but it has to be my way.
Okay.
And it's not like how we train kids our school, but it would be the traditional way, and we're not going to like each other.
You're not gonna like those minutes in Mapu.
No, exactly. So I mean, I was pretty much focusing on my son, and my son he was a bit of a, yeah. I mean, I was focusing on my career, but teaching my son was like, okay, that kept me somewhat still in the martial art world, right? But unofficially. So I was teaching my son for 3 years, and then I said, okay, you know what, Alex, it's time to test yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go to a competition. And so we were preparing for competition. He did Bungpu. I was preparing, teaching a Bungpu, and then also Master Su's Baguan. So it's a double rods, Praying Mantis double rod. So that's what I was teaching him. And so I was also showing your videos of your Bungpu. Said, you need to look like this. This is how you should be. Be honest. I mean, your Bungpu is my favorite Bungpu online. I will always say that it's my favorite.
Thank you very
So
much.
no problem. So I told myself, you need to move like this. This is the goal. But yeah, so he prepared, for a year, and then we flew to Sweden Stockholm in Sweden, last December, and he competed in his first competition, and he was a bit shy, and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't want to warm up in the mats with the
Yeah.
other players, and I said, "No, just don't worry about it. Just do your thing. Don't worry about any other persons."
Yeah.
So he started playing Pumpu, and one of the older competitors had approached me and said, "Is that your son?" Yeah, that's my son. Oh wow, he's really good. Who's his teacher? I'm his teacher. You're his teacher. Yes. Oh, he's so lucky, that you're teaching him. But he's moving with so much power. I have not seen that in any children who are competing in this competition, that they displayed that kind of power.
Mm-hmm.
Where are your other students? I said, oh no, he's my only student. Don't you have a club in Denmark? No, just teaching him at home. I thought
Yeah.
this would be a good opportunity to test him. And she was saying, you need to start teaching. You
Yeah.
need to return. And prior to that, even my own teacher, he's like, you need to get back to teaching, Paulo. Don't worry about the number of students or whether you have anything to offer. I mean, start off small and try to,
Yeah.
teach, So after the competition, my son got third place in empty hand,
Okay.
Northern traditional, and then also third place in weapons. So he got a lot of respect from a lot of the practitioners there. And, I got this impression, okay, yeah, you need to start teaching. So, okay, maybe let's see. I'll give it some time. And another friend, actually, I met a Facebook friend. He's teaching Taekwondo, and he asked if I could show him some Taiji. This is around Christmas time, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
we met up at his school, and then doing some drills, the chansu drills, and then he was like, but this is just forms. Jiu-Jitsu guys, right? They always like to do the applications, and it's okay, we'll do applications. So I started throwing him around the school,
Yeah.
and he was like saying, why aren't you teaching this? You need to teach,
Yeah.
your martial arts. Nobody's doing this in Denmark. And it's a shame that you're not showing this to anybody, because other people will be coming to you and wanting to learn these martial arts. I mean, when you threw me, it's just like, and then all of a sudden I went down in the ground.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so he didn't know what came after. It was like, well, yeah, that's just how it is. So that sparked my interest. So it was several things. So basically, I said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I'll teach out in a park or something, maybe on a Sunday, and just try to advertise a little bit online and
Yeah.
um,
And start with
Facebook.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And funny thing is, I had an old website because I did have a website when I was somewhat thinking about teaching. I created a website, and there was this message, right, that you could send a message to the website and you get email.
Mm-hmm.
There was an email from a student, or potential student from October of that year, and I didn't see it. So,
Wow.
so I was like, oh wow, what a coincidence. So I contacted that fellow, and he became my first student.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then there was a second person that contacted me as well through the website right at that time when I was planning to start teaching, and said that he wanted to learn, and so we started off that way. So that's how the birth of Wu-Tan Denmark.
And where is that located? So people that listen to us can know where to find you, for example, in Denmark.
Well, I mean, I'm teaching at a park at an area called Nørrebro, and it's called Horsholm Parken, Horsholm's Park, and that's pretty much in the center of Copenhagen. It's
Okay.
just a park in the center of Copenhagen.
And is that only Sundays, or do you have
Right now, Sundays, I'm evaluating. I've been offered actually to share a space with my friend, my Jikendo friend.
Okay.
So I'm considering it. So potentially, I may be moving to a indoor location and teaching twice a week in the weekdays.
Okay. That sounds fantastic. I actually encourage you to do that if you can, right? I mean, if your time allows that, because like you said, your focus is in your professional career right now, but that's something that I'm glad to hear that story, right? That you came back to teaching, even when after that competition where your son competed, and you heard
Mm.
that from another person that encouraged
Mm.
you back then to start again, and that's awesome.
It's funny that as well that during that time that I wasn't teaching, it was as if one part of me was not alive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was like I didn't feel complete. There was something missing. So I was happy. I became very successful in my career. I have a very happy family.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very stable life here in Denmark, but something was missing.
Yeah.
I told this to my teacher as well. When I still maintain contact with him. Occasionally, we have some video Zoom
Yep.
conferences or send him emails occasionally. And I told him the same thing, and that was the reason why he encouraged me to get back into teaching, because really Chinese martial arts is such a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my personality, how I treat others and how I treat life in general. I mean, Chinese martial arts taught me hard work, learning to eat bitter. I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure that you heard that phrase before. So I apply those principles every day in my life, and that's the reason why I got to the position where I'm at today. It's through Chinese martial arts training, and yeah, that mentality that everybody has to perfect
That
one's skills and to overcome hardship.
that mindset, right?
Yeah.
Um, I completely agree with you. I One of the things that I always say is that I have extrapolated everything that I've learned in martial arts into my personal life and even my professional career.
Mm.
And believe it or not, every time that I go to a job interview,
Mm-hmm.
I say I practice martial arts since I was 5.5 years old.
Mm.
And I put in my resume, I've been world champion in Chinese martial arts.
Mm.
And that's something that tells people that you are somehow responsible, that you have discipline, and that you have many values that martial arts give to people, right?
Mm.
And they know that you will extrapolate that into your profession, and
Exactly.
that I would say always help with any job interview. because it's they know, and that's really
Mm.
important. So Paolo, I want to really thank you for your time today. Before we finish this interview, is there anything else that you want to share with your Utan family and this channel?
Well, first of all, thank you, Jorge, for inviting me. I feel really honored that I'm considered to be part of this project of yours. As I mentioned, I've been low key for 6 years now. So to come back through your channel, I think is really great. So I thank you for that opportunity that you're giving unto me. I encourage the rest of our Wu-Tan family to help, with this endeavor of yours to be interviewed, because we really need to share our culture, our martial arts, and the legacy of Grandmaster Liu Yun-Qiao. I think it's a very precious heritage that we have been asked to pass down, and I think that through this channel we're going to be able to do that. Also, yeah, if anybody's interested in learning traditional Chinese martial arts in Denmark through the lineage of Grandmaster Liu Yun-Qiao, I'm always available. I could be contacted through Facebook or Instagram. We have a Wutan Denmark Instagram page, also a Facebook page as well, where we have where I post occasionally, some things that we're doing. So I
Uh,
invite anybody who has an open mind and would like to learn traditional Chinese martial arts.
Absolutely. I will make sure that I put your contact here in the video so everybody can see where to find you. I want to thank you one more time for believing in this project and for sharing all those stories with our Utan family. I think that is very important. So everybody can know each other in this family. Like I said before, I mean, I've been so many years without knowing that all these brilliant people is around the world sharing and promoting real traditional Chinese martial arts. And that's like we talked about a few minutes ago, that's part of our promise. It's a commitment that we
Mm.
made when we became disciples of our different Shifus. And now that we are part of this Utan lineage or Utan family. So thank you very much for sharing all this information with us. And thank you everybody for tuning. Please subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and stay tuned because there's so much coming and more interviews and more information. And please stay tuned because we're gonna share it all. Thank you very much, Paolo. Good to have
Thank you, Jorge.
this talk to you. Bye.
Thanks. Okay, goodbye.